Coach Nick from BballBreakdown. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, really well. The off-season's been busy for the New York Knicks. I wanted to start with your initial thoughts here. You dropped a great video on Jalen Brunson, that acquisition. The New York Knicks finally got their point guard, and you, I'm really curious to get the thoughts from you on the fit, on what you think Jalen Brunson means to this team.
Well, sure. I mean, obviously, the worry with him is that he had carved out a nice little niche that got him a lot of money to go to the Knicks based on playing alongside Luka Doncic. So you started to wonder, well, is a lot of that doing that because he's playing off of a guy that has that much gravity and that's opening things up for him, which it did for sure. But, in Dallas, there was evidence that he was able to generate his own offense. In fact, Luka would play off of him. So the only question you have now is, can he sustain that over a course of a 82 games, season as kind of being the man? But then you also have to deal with the man already there, which is Julius Randle. And then you also have Barrett. I knew Jared didn't sound right. RJ Barrett. They're all lefties. And I'm kind of fascinated to find how that's going to work. I can't remember a starting lineup that had at least three lefties in it. I don't think it matters, but a lot of times lefties are obviously lefty dominant. They'll go that way a lot more than they go to the right. So that could mean something as far as defensively how teams can shift like they do, like in baseball. I don't know in Australia if they know that, but they'll have these radical shifts defensively because of the way guys hit. So I wonder if that's something, but it's an improvement. Like he definitely is an improvement over what the guard play they got last year. So that is a positive sign.
Yeah, definitely. I think fans are. Well, there was a big topic about how much he deserved to be paid and all of those things, and how he fits in this roster. But Knicks fans, for the most part, are excited to have a point guard that's 25 years old and is able to run the team. The Knicks lost a lot of close games down the stretch, coach, and just having that guy, hopefully with Tom Thibodeau allowing him to run the team, the Knicks should finish games out better.
I agree. I mean, I think the real question here is with Tibbs and his coaching style and how it grates on people, and it could very well lead to them tuning him out eventually, because I think he's gotten better at this. He used to sort of like just be bellowing out orders every possession. You could hear it on the broadcast. You didn't have to be at the stadium to hear it. But the worry I would have with that is that like eventually that you kind of get drowned out. Even though what you're trying to say is good and what they should be doing, at some point you just need to kind of maybe trust the players. So that's another question. And then obviously they have young talent. In my mind, they don't have a lot of, like, I know they want to win, they want to get to the finals, all that kind of stuff, but they're not really in quite that trajectory yet. So in my mind, this is an opportunity here to open it up and let Obi Toppin play a lot of minutes. Let IQ play more, Emmanuel quickly play more, and really, that's the interesting thing is there's a guy who I think could develop into a good player, but not when they keep bringing in like a Brunson who's going to take a lot of those minutes. Derrick Rose is still around as well, but if Derrick Rose is healthy too, like that's another addition from the guard play they're going to get off the bench. That would indicate that they'll be better than they were last year, which is good.
Yeah, and definitely getting away from the isolation play that riddled the Knicks. Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Jalen Brunson, as you spoke about in your video, is an effective player in the isolation as well. How concerned are you that he, will not have a greatest impact on dishing and distributing? He's not known for being that kind of a point guard, more of a score first point guard.
Absolutely. It's a very big concern. And Thibodeau's offense has kind of been rudimentary for a long time out of this. The irony was I had done a video years ago on the Bulls offense that he ran there, and they actually ran a lot of triangle offense, like pure triangle offense. And since then, it's like he's kind of gotten away from that a little bit or a lot. And like they don't get the kind of movement. And it could very well be just, Julius Randle, making that happen with a lot of stacked and isolations. And so it's a really big concern. I mean, listen, Jalen Brunson is a basketball player and he knows how to play, quote unquote, the right way. So he can adapt and move. But like we just don't have a lot of evidence of him being like the guys that come down and say, hey, RJ hasn't gotten a shot for a few minutes. We're going to get him one, and he's going to manage that whole thing as well. That we don't know if he can be that kind of guy on the court. And so if you're going to have him isolating and you're going to have Barrett isolating, you're going to have Randle isolating, they could get ugly very quickly. At least against the good defenses, and then against the bottom half of the league, they'll be able to put the ball in the basket and be competitive. But that still doesn't indicate even a playoff run if that's what's going to happen.
Most fans from the Knicks side understand how strong the East is, Coach. And in terms of this Brunson acquisition, it's seen as a step. It's like what's the next step? We've improved at the guard play situation, but then there's Julius Randle, still on the roster, and is he going to be okay with having less touches? Who's going to close out the games? So there's a lot of things for Coach Thibodeau to figure out in terms of who's going to be, running the team and finishing the games out. It's going to be really, really critical.
I agree. I think that, because you can picture the typical, play they're going to run is some sort of a pick and roll with Brunson on top. And then you got this. Here's the other thing: to decide who's going to be the screener for him most. Probably like Mitchell Robinson. I'm hoping he's starting and playing a lot of minutes. But if you're trying to space the floor for that, and that's where the starting point. Well, okay, Fournier can do that for you. The other guys are all kind of really inconsistent. Even like Barrett, I think has had moments where he shot well, but I don't know if he's going to have the kind of gravity they need to create that space. So that's going to be a challenge as well. And then once you don't get penetration from that, and then the ball gets to Randle, then it's going to stop. He'll end up shooting a long two off a difficult move, probably. It's tough. It's hard to see how that offense is going to be, great. Like last year, they were 22nd out of 30th in offensive rating. Brunson makes them 3 spots better, maybe. So they're still way below average, and that's going to be a real challenge. And then defensively, I'm kind of curious. They finished 11th, so they actually were pretty decent on the defensive end. And Brunson doesn't really bring a lot to the table besides just being solid, whatever. But he's got physical limitations that are gonna haunt them if they go to small in the backcourt.
Yeah, and Brunson does need to improve shooting as well with the floor spacing, Coach, with Randle. Again, RJ and Brunson as well. He's going to have to learn to catch and shoot off, playing off of RJ and Randle, because he's going to get a lot more catch and shoot opportunities, and he needs to be able to hit them consistently for the Knicks offense to have any kind of spacing.
What's interesting about that, when I did the video, is unless I'm totally forgetting, this has been a few weeks now, my memory was that Brunson didn't even take that many threes off the dribble. Most of his threes are catch and shoot, which needs to change, by the way. So it's almost like what you're saying. I'm almost going to say he needs to take some more threes off the dribble to keep the defense honest. Otherwise, they're just going to go under that. And if it's Randle screening for him, they're going to just be so packed in that they're not going to get any kind of penetration. Remember, that's the name of the game. With the pick and roll, that's if you don't get that kind of penetration, then you can't get the kickouts for threes. You can't attack closeouts. You certainly don't get the easier shots at the rim that you're looking for either, but the layup on the ball handler or the lob. So when you get a couple guys together who they know aren't going to shoot or be that effective off the from deep, running the pick and roll becomes a lot harder all of a sudden. And if you can't get that to work, that's where we are in the NBA. That's the play that you have to make happen. So it's going to be interesting. What makes me wonder, is it someone like Fournier who ends up getting, some more touches as a ball handler in the pick and roll, or other kind of, creative ways of figuring out how to get downhill and get some penetration?
Yeah, you mentioned Fournier, and just before we touch on that a bit more, I'm curious to know if you saw much of Summer League and Quentin Grimes, his performance in Summer League.
I heard about it, but I was just so busy. I didn't go to Summer League this year, and I haven't gotten a chance. But tell me, what are you seeing from him? And I'm kind of curious about what they should expect going into the season.
Yeah, so a lot of fans obviously saw Fournier struggles defensively, and the performances from Grimes and what we've seen, he's been able to hold his own on the wing spot and shoot at a great clip, shoot off the bounce. He comes in as a shooter as well. So yeah, there's talk that that Grimes is deserving of getting a starting look. and that would change the defensive look of this starting unit.
Well, okay. I mean, the only question there is, will Thibodeau be willing to do that? I feel like he has tended to side with like veterans over the younger players. I think that's not a hot take there. And then, like Quickly is a good example of that, where I kind of felt like, why isn't he getting more minutes earlier? And so I would love it. Listen, again, the position that I see the Knicks in is a development, again, another development year. And there shouldn't be the kind of pressure to like overplay Rose and any of the other veterans like that. Let the young guys develop and see what happens. You might lose a game or two more, but what's the difference? You're still going to be in a dogfight for, the play-in, probably at best. So why not like let these guys develop quicker so that the year after that they're ready to go, and now you have a chance to get into the 7th seed, 6th seed, and beyond. So that's how I feel about this year. I don't know. Like, you tell me, what are the general Knicks expectations this year? Where are they expecting the team to be?
Yeah, look, as currently constructed, they're expected to be fighting for the play-in. Yeah, I think that's realistic expectation. I haven't spoke to many fans that think that a playoff spot is a lock. Yeah, especially in this crowded East. Even though we have made some upgrades, there is still more to come. Obviously, we're about to talk about Donovan Mitchell, but yeah, it's currently constructed. I think, fighting for that play-in.
Okay, and yeah, that makes sense. I mean, listen, I think every team who's not the upper 4, 5, 6 teams are all fighting for the play-in, right, at this point. Although I suppose, we still have the sneaky tank teams these days. We're going to be a couple, but not as many as there used to be. So, yeah, I mean, that is about where I see them. They won, what, 30 how many games? 37 games last year? Yeah, 37 games. And again, so to get into the playoffs, yeah, they'd only need to win a few more. And, listen, Brunson is an upgrade. The Kemba Walker thing is now away from them, so they can move on from that. But, it's interesting because they were talking about the Donovan Mitchell trade. What's the latest? What you tell me what the latest is in terms of what they think the offering is that they can get him for?
Today that talks have stalled, and the two sides haven't spoken in 2 weeks, which doesn't tell me a lot. It's the off season. I think Danny Ainge got the package he got for Rudy Gobert, and he's definitely wanting a lot more, or at least the same, for Donovan. So the Knicks have up to 4 or 5 picks that they can offer. He wants all of them, but unprotected. So there's a bit of back and forth over the protections of the picks. Young players the Knicks would have to send across. There's talk they would want Grimes, Obi, and or IQ as well. So the Knicks, by reports, are trying to hold on to as many of those young players as they can, and not too many unprotected picks.
Right. I mean, here's the thing about Donovan Mitchell, which is interesting, because just to switch over to the Utah side for a while, like I had been saying that they needed to break this pairing up between Gobert and Mitchell for like at least 3 years, because it had seemed obvious to me that was not going to be a championship pairing. And then that kind of goes back to what we said before. Well, maybe that's okay. Maybe Utah just wanted to be competitive. They could be a number 1 seed that they showed in the regular season, and then be a tough out in the playoffs. That might have been enough for them to be satisfied with. But as far as I could tell, at least the fan base wanted to get to the finals, wanted to compete for that title, and that was not going to happen. And so the next question you have is Donovan Mitchell a pairing with anybody else to get another team to that level as well? Is there a better pairing for him? And can he do what he did? Like, I guess in my mind, there's always that notion of, he's getting a lot of stats. You can't say he's getting a lot of stats on a bad team. Like, there's that kind of player, right? And then he gets to a good team and a bit higher competition. He's not nearly as good as he was in in that bad team. Now, clearly, Mitchell has led the team as the lead scoring option on an elite team in the regular season. They've been elite. They've won a lot of games. So I think it's reasonable to assume that if he were to go to New York, for instance, he would do probably exactly the same numbers he did in Utah, and in the same exact way. They will accommodate him to run, the pick and roll, be a primary ball handler for him. And then the question now is can he, improve like the 3-point shooting and a bit more consistent there? And then will that ultimately help? In my mind, it's 3-point shooting is big. I have to go check it while we're talking, but my memory is the Knicks 3-point shooting. Do you know what it was last year? Actually, up at the top, they're 2, 4, 6. 8th in the league last year in 3-point frequency, which is good. Like they're getting those shots, but they were, and they were very middle of the pack in the success rate. So that's another one of those things where, can Donovan Mitchell and if he gets there, and then obviously can Brunson help that? I think Brunson could, because there will be penetration and kicks out for the threes, which are like the second best threes you can get. And so I do feel like that could be something that would help them overall, because it's a grind for them, and they have to find some way to balance out the mid-range stuff that they're getting from Randle. And then, I don't know, even the RJ Barrett ISOs, I went through a whole bunch to look at that video. And I was very unsatisfied with RJ Barrett's play overall. I know he's scoring well, but it just feels like there's a lot a lot of holes in his finishing package at the rim that need to be addressed, hopefully this summer.
The biggest concern is after that package, if they give in to Danny Ainge's demands, then there wouldn't be much to improve the roster after that. What do you think a Donovan Mitchell package is worth?
Great question. So, I mean, well, how many picks do you think that that Danny Ainge is asking for?
He's asking for at least, I feel like at least 5. How many of them unprotected, I'm not sure, but the Knicks do have quite a few protected picks, but he wants them unprotected.
And when we say that, all first-round picks, he wants 5 first-round picks, and then he still wants players on top of that?
Yep, the Grimes, Obies, IQs, those kind of guys.
All right. I mean, listen, the Knicks would be stupid or silly if they gave them more than one player with 5 picks. That would be way too much as it is. So that's crazy. I can't remember. Rudy got 4, right? 4 number 1 picks and a player was involved in that deal, right? Yep. But 5 picks is like, it's a whole team. It's like, that's insane. So I wouldn't give them any more than one player alongside all those picks, because again, Mitchell, I don't know if he's worth it that way. You're gonna give up all this to get Brunson, and then to get Mitchell. Mitchell and Brunson as a backcourt defensively is troubling. It's also small. And it's all that's an interesting discussion. Now you can throw, if you got Mitchell Robinson back there to anchor a defense, that's good. I like his defense. I think he could do that as he's developing. But who else do you have? Like, is Barrett is a defender to some degree. I kind of feel like my mind's eye could see that a little bit, but who else are they throwing out there? Randle is not that guy. So that would make it really difficult on their defense. And so, and then just to get back to what the deal could be, I would probably, if I were the Knicks, I would probably offer like 2 first-round picks. Okay, fine. If they needed them unprotected, I'd offer them 2 maybe. And unprotected picks aren't a thing anymore, right? Like they shouldn't be. Nobody should give out unprotected picks anymore. But let's just say, okay, you have pressure. Maybe 2 of those, and then maybe – a couple players, maybe, Emmanuel quickly. And then, I guess you could maybe do it with Grimes, because you still don't know exactly what Grimes is. Summer League is not always a great indicator of what they'll do in the NBA. And so if it's an unknown, I'd say, okay, but let's throw those 2 guys. Utah should take that because they have a potentially good, young player who can develop, and IQ, I think, can be really, really good. That would probably be a reasonable haul for Utah to get. And of course, the Rudy Gobert trade screwed everything up. And now, if he's worth 4 first-round picks plus whatever, then I understand why he thinks that's what the market would be for Mitchell, but I wouldn't give it up if I were the Knicks.
Exactly, you're right. He's not that guy that makes you an instant contender,
right?
And the Knicks would need picks. They would need picks to, add the next piece and things like that. And the Knicks do have a lot of protected picks. They acquired 3 on draft night, but a lot of them are heavily protected from Washington and the other teams as well. But yeah, you're right. The unprotected picks aren't really a thing anymore. I would give 2 max, and one young player and salary filler Fournier, and maybe a draft and stash. But yeah, I think that's where the Knicks need to draw the line.
Right. So, and the longer this goes, like the less, leverage Ainge is going to have on this. And then they're going to get to the season where they're going to get stuck being like, in that middle of the pack. And that's the other issue is you don't want to get stuck. It's the 8th seed every year and you're kind of grinding. It's kind of like where the Knicks have been, right? They had that one quick stretch where they got into the playoffs based on like a 12-game hot streak that they had that year. Probably weren't even expecting that to happen. And then so around all that, like they've sort of been stuck in that same that mode where they can't seem to entice any big name free agents anyway. Even though they've been trying with the front office mix up or shake up. But I'm still looking at the last several years. They won 21, 41, 37. So it's that 41, 37 last couple of year thing where you get stuck in there and you can't quite break out. But my biggest concern, I think, if I were the Knicks, was that they don't have the ability for whatever reason to attract, that big name. And it's been this way since LeBron was shopping before he went to Miami. They always seem to get like the Amari Stoudemire or who's another example of that, like a free agent that they got who's a total consolation prize. And it must really hurt when like Kyrie and KD go to Brooklyn, of all places, versus, Madison Square Garden. So I think that they need to figure that out first. They got to figure out a way to get the front office aligned with the coaching staff and the whole thing, the culture around it, so that it becomes a destination. It does boggle my mind, aside from the weather, why they can't make that a destination that players want to play in.
For long-term sustainability, a lot of fans are okay with just seeing what they have in these young players first. Keep these picks.
They're thinking that either Grimes or Fournier, I suppose, could start right alongside him. I guess obviously they're hoping Mitchell comes. Those are the choices they have right now alongside Brunson.
And Cam Reddish, obviously, I think we talked about him last time, but Cam Reddish is on a restricted free agent season.
Right. And by the way, I really like Cam Reddish. You probably talked about this before, but there is the what you said about his contract situation could get him into a different mode where he's just trying to like score every single time and being really selfish and not playing this part of the team. I could see that with him. And that's really too bad, because when he lets the game come to him, he could be a really terrific scorer and a guy very useful for them because he's got a lot of size as well. I mean, I thought that Atlanta was really building something great with him, but clearly they sensed that there was going to be a battle of the wills with DeAndre Hunter and him and having to share those minutes. And so they made the choice that Reddish wasn't going to be the guy that's going to fit in so well with that culture, which is too bad. So that's the issue we have here. You have Tibbs, who's he's not going to have much patience for that, I don't think. I would imagine gunners like that who like to shoot off, and who might be inefficient, get his ire, he'll bench him. That becomes another problem versus trying to help them or talk to them and help them figure out how to make that work. And maybe there is no way to talk to him. Maybe that's how it is. But I think that Cam Reddish could be an X factor here, to the point where he could play better than RJ Barrett. Ultimately, I think he has more ability. His ceiling is, I think, higher, believe it or not, even though RJ has already proven himself a little bit more than Reddish certainly has. I think that Reddish could ultimately eat some of Barrett's minutes.
You've seen much of Isaiah Hartenstein as well. He can stretch the floor.
Yeah, well, he was playing here in LA, so I got to watch a lot of him last year. Every coach would love this guy, right? The high energy, hustle, makes plays though. He's not just like the guy who's running around out there just trying to like hit people and tip the ball out or something. He has some skills. He's a little bit awkward in his movement patterns, but he has some skills that are sort of traditionally old school around the basket stuff. Perfect for a guy coming off the bench to do that. It would be nice to be able to figure out small ball lineups for the Knicks where they could go and have like a shooter at that 5 position. I don't think that they can do that, but not to get away from Hartenstein too quickly, but that is what I'm interested to see, because I think that's the name of the game for the future of the NBA. Is you need to be able to develop that one lineup that's going to play 5 minutes a game, 6 minutes a game, where you go ultra small and spread the floor and get you can cause a lot of havoc for the defense. And that's an issue I feel like that the Knicks are sort of still traditionally, not going away from. So when you have Mitchell Robinson, you have Isaiah Hartenstein. Jericho Sims, I saw some of last year, and I liked what he was doing. He doesn't stretch the floor in my mind, right? I don't think he has any ability to shoot from the outside, right?
Not at all.
Right.
Yeah, he's more of a down low, banger.
Yeah. And again, it's kind of fun. It's like going to a
Yeah.
museum when you see these kind of guys come back on the court, and like Taj Gibson is sort of like that bridge as well in a way, and he's not with the Knicks anymore either. So that's interesting that he's now moved on, because that's another one of those examples of, I love Taj. He's a great teammate. He does what the coach wants him to do, but it's like, get Obi should have all those minutes, and Mitchell Robinson should just have all those minutes. It's like, it's just not fair to the development of your program to just let him, grind it out on the court as much as he was at the expense of the development. So Isaiah Hartenstein, another one of those things. It's a good piece, a good locker room guy. You know what I mean? So those are all like, that's a smart move. Hartenstein to me is a little bit more of that guy that like the Nets pick up, or like a good team that just wants to shore up a little bit of their front court stuff or whatever. The Clippers were a good example of that. And it doesn't sort of feel like the signing fits with the Knicks from where their standpoint is. But, again, they're just trying to get, people and good players and better players on their roster. But you know what I mean? That's why it was a little bit of a strange thing. I'm sure Hartenstein probably got more money to go there than anywhere else. So of course he has to take that. But that was one of those weird, a little bit of a strange thing too, where I don't know how that really fits in personnel wise with exactly what the Knicks are trying to build.
Yeah, the thing with his shooting, it was efficient, but it was on very low usage. It was like 1.1 threes. I'm not sure if it really qualified as a stretch five. But yeah, Mitchell Robinson can't really stretch the floor. So that's where I think they were probably looking at that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Hartenstein's numbers right now with the Clippers last year. I mean, he didn't even take half of a 3-point attempt a game. So, and the way his shooting mechanics are, I don't see him. He hit a lot of them, but he didn't hardly take them. I don't see him being a guy who's going to be real reliable out there. I mean, that said, they're not going to guard him at all. So if the first half of the season, he probably could pop and have 10 seconds to catch it and shoot it if he wanted to, which would, probably indicate some makes. But I would imagine if they started to then, try to limit that a little bit, then that percentage would go way down. So yeah, Hartenstein's not that guy. Robinson's not that guy. Sims is not that guy. You'd have to have Randle played center, right? And Randle took a step back last year, right, with his 3-point shooting. Yeah, so he was at 31%, and in the year before that, he was elite, I think, right, or really pretty good.
Yep.
And that was interesting to me because that kind of came out of nowhere. It did. He ended up being at 41%, having been 28% the year before. That's unprecedented, that jump, and so that's worthy of like, oh, okay, like what's going on here. But it's probably a little bit more regression to the mean. I would imagine his where he's going to settle in, Randle will settle in, is probably in that 32-33% range. Just probably not enough to have any gravity on that, and certainly not the kind of thing you want to have him as a small ball center if that's what you're looking for in terms of shooting. You need something a little bit better than that, I think. And then defensively, in my mind's eye, it strikes me as Randle at center would be suboptimal too, because he doesn't have any rim protection. He doesn't necessarily help very well. So that would be a problem. They are lacking that. That would be if I were the general manager of the Knicks, I would be looking to figure out a way to create a 5-man lineup that you can spread the floor and be small. And so far that hasn't happened.
Yeah, definitely Randle regressed a lot 3-point shooting wise. But yeah, I do believe Obi needs to play a lot more because he's probably one of the best stretch big men, the best stretch big man on this roster.
That's a great call. You might think that Obi is like not big enough, he's still kind of thin and long, but that's okay. I think you can get away with that in those stretches where you want to change the game. So yeah, I'm all in on Obi Toppin. I think he again deserves. I kind of want to see how many minutes did he ended up getting last year. Let's see. Obi Toppin played, 17 minutes a game. That's insane. He should be playing 27 minutes a game, and find out really what you have there. Because and he only shot 31%, but I do feel from three. But I do feel like, and he's got kind of wonky mechanics as well. But I'd be willing to bet that he could probably get that a little bit higher. In my mind's eye, when I remember going through him in college, I think he shot okay from 3-point land in college. Is that crazy? Do you remember that? He did. He averaged on low volume his sophomore year in Dayton. He shot 39% on 2.5 3-point attempts per game. So that's like somewhat encouraging. I would bet he could get that into that 34-35% range. Gets more comfortable. Gets more consistent minutes. Playing 17 minutes a game is not easy to do if you want to try and shoot threes, because you'll probably go 5 minutes at a time in between shots, and that's that's hard to get a rhythm. It could be longer than 5 minutes, and then you're on the bench again, and you're back in. So he's probably only taking he might have 2 stretches. He plays in the second quarter, that stretch of 6 minutes, or and then another one in the end of the third. So he's only going in 2, maybe 3 times in that game. He'll probably take 1-3 each stint. That's not easy to do and develop a rhythm. So if he gets more minutes, gets more consistent playing time, I would think that Obi would be that guy you could probably get away with. So forgive me. There's your lineup. Well, who would it be then? It would have to be Obi. I would say not Randle. Let's go crazy. Go Obi, RJ, Brunson. Boy, who else could you have that could play alongside that?
Yeah, Brunson, Grimes, and Mitchell Robinson.
Oh well, I'm thinking let Obi play the center, and have Robinson and Randle on the bench. So go really basically let RJ Barrett play power forward, right? This is fun. This is why not? What's the big deal by trying these things, right? I would do And by the way, Fournier's defense now. I was going to say Fournier has a little size. He's legitimately 6'7", right, or so, but he doesn't really defend, so it doesn't matter that he's that height.
Reddish, I guess. Reddish, RJ Reddish.
Now you're talking. Love it. Okay, that's what it should be. I would love to see this. Toppin, Barrett, Reddish, quickly, and maybe Grimes, go big with Grimes there and let him play. That's an athletic, long. You can have some shooting, a little bit there. That would be an interesting lineup. Will Tibbs ever do that? Probably never. But that's the kind of thing they should be thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's what the front office would like to see as well. But Randle's the big hole in that situation. As long as he's here earning 25 mil, he's going to need minutes. Well, there is talk that if the Knicks do get Donovan coach, that Randle will shortly be on his way out.
It's tough because he's got a big contract, and he's. I don't think anybody wants him. I don't know what his value really is. It's going to be tough. They're going to have to include. To trade Randle, they're going to have to include a pick there, I'd imagine, to help him get out of the way, unless they can do some crazy thing where Randle goes to the Jazz and Mitchell goes to the Knicks. But that's not being talked about, right?
Yeah, maybe they would reroute him to another team. But certainly his deal. Look, when the CBA's up, his deal was 27 mil. It's not bad.
Yeah, that's Randle's deal.
There's just 4 years on it. Yeah, there just happens to be 5 years on it.
Right, it's a lot of. I mean, listen, if you wanted to not win a lot of games, then having Randle on your team isn't the worst thing. You know what I mean? You could just let him shoot all those long twos, and you know what I mean? That's not the worst thing. So I guess it's not a thing, but I would be looking at that if that was going to be a thing. Now, here's the deal. If he only had 1 year left on his contract, then the Jazz probably already would have done that. They would have probably taken Randle back. Let him shoot 20-footers, contested 20-footer step backs that are, that go in at a 40% clip. That would play into their plans. I think you're right. I think the issue they might have is obviously there's another 2 years after that, plus a player option, which, for $29 million, and he's going to opt into that, I think, wherever he is, because no one's going to pay him that amount of money as a free agent after for 25, 26. So, I mean, as far as I could tell. So that is probably the poison pill there. It's that player option at the end is probably got the Jazz being no, it's a whole other year. He's going to be with us. So anyway, and by the way, it's safe to say that Randle spent a significant part of last year with a rain cloud over his head, right? Just sort of being upset and bringing everybody down. Is that fair to say?
Yep. That's exactly what happened. But he's come in. He's looking slim. Looking like he's obviously needing to, bring back his form from the year before. And he's a hard worker as well. But, I think it was a mental approach with this situation with Jalen Brunson here. It's going to be fascinating.
Have you seen pictures of him where he slimmed down? I haven't seen this. Where have you seen this?
Yeah. So he was at Summer League. He was sitting courtside. And, he's looking extremely slim. As slim as I've ever seen him.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. That will help for sure. That can increase his. Oh, you know what? Is this what I see? Yeah, and I saw the picture of him and Jericho Sims. This reminds me of this was probably a little bit longer even ago, but he looked kind of ripped in a way that he hadn't been before. Okay, Well, that's good. New season, new body, new mindset, perhaps. But I don't know. You have to be very wary of that mindset creeping back in. There are very normal, and it's very normal human patterns of behavior. And the question is does Thibodeau contribute to that a little bit with, there's a bit of an oppressive nature, possibly, that he puts over the team. I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm very much armchair quarterbacking this and looking at this from way afar. But we have seen in the past where it's like there is a grinding thing to it. The energy gets sucked out of the room from that. And it just is, it's sort of what's lacking. The energy is what's lacking, and you need to find the joy of the game. So hopefully, Thibodeau can tap into that as well, because these are young players. You need to just let them, take off the limits here and open the game up, open the floor up. I've been to games in Madison Square Garden when the crowd is really into it. Like, there's no better place to see a game that, and I feel like they've been missing that for so long. And it's been, it's even like that, the Bing Bong video, right? There was something about the cheering of the fans there that was more concerned about dunking on the other team versus celebrating what the Knicks are doing. And that's a problem too. They need to get more behind like what the Knicks are doing and build that energy up versus, F. Trae Young and, all the other stuff that they like to do that seems to be, fun for them. You know what I'm saying? It's weird. It's almost like the Cleveland Cavalier fans that love to celebrate their title over the Warriors by pointing out that the Warriors blew the 3-1 lead versus their own team came back from a 1-3 deficit. Like, that should be how you phrase it. And it's a weird mindset to be in, that you have to celebrate someone else's demise versus the excellent play that your own team did. And I feel like we need to tap back into that for the Knicks. We all deserve it. Listen, I'm a Bulls fan from the 90s, growing up in the 70s and 90s, right? So I have no interest in those Knicks teams were so ruined many a Mother's Day dinner because the playoffs were around then, and we go after those games. But the NBA deserves, and they need to have a New York Knicks team that's good and competitive and fun, and not the kind that we had in the 90s that was just beating you down to overcome skill deficit. We're just going to make it really rough. No. We need to see a team that's fun in that Warriors manner, and their ball movement, passing and shooting. Like, that's what I think they deserve. That's the heart of of New York. New York basketball is all about that, and they need to tap back into that.
Yeah, the 70s Knicks. That was their championship team, and that's what I hope I get to see in my lifetime, know.
Well, you see this, the very far, it's probably, I should have them closer, but if you can see the last picture that there I'm pointing in right now, that's Nat Holman, who is the head coach of City College of New York, the last team, or the only team ever to win the NCAA and NIT tournaments in the same year. Can't do that now because they're at the same time. But that New York style of play, so even back before the 70s, and there's a root of connected to the 70s Knicks teams. The coach of the 70s teams was Red Holzman, who played for Nat Holman at CCNY. So you have and Nat is like the origins of the game. He played in the original Celtics, not the Boston Celtics, the original barnstorming Celtics team from the 20s, like Dutch Dennert. Nat Holman was the best player on that team too. And that team invented the post play, and they invented give and go. So, and that's all New York, and they have to figure out a way to get back to that. And, that's why, like, I don't know if Thibodeau is that guy. It's like they would probably need to find that Louis Carnesecca version that's, who's obviously much younger and can tap into that. I'm getting excited, by the way. I can envision this getting back to, like, almost like the Globetrotter style, high post action, backdoor cuts, handoffs. We need all that. I feel like we're not seeing that enough right now. Stagger ISO's got to go away. And that will resurrect the Knicks fans and connect with their DNA of basketball.
Yeah, definitely. Fans want to see them get up and down. That's why they love Obi a lot. Mitchell Robinson. Randle, he plays his game. That's what he's always been. But it's about fit. And I'm excited. Most fans are excited to see these younger players play. At least I'm looking forward to seeing some better point guard play. The Kemba Walker experiment was just a disaster, really.
I did that video, by the way, when I tried to defend Kemba because I didn't think it was all on him. I think he was doing fine. Certainly, he was playing well enough to not merit just completely being benched. It was very strange. It's not these things don't happen in the vacuum. That has an effect on the team. Kemba, I'm sure, is a very popular guy. Everyone, I'm sure, likes him. And they put him through that. It was all very, very strange. There must be more information in the background we don't know. But, yeah, I mean, at least they moved on. That's not going to happen again this year with him. But, yeah, there's just a general energy and excitement they need to somehow tap back into. And we'll find out, within 10 games, right? If after 10 games, Derrick Rose is averaging 30 minutes a game, then we know, like, this is not going to be the fun young guns going out there and letting it all hang out. And that's a problem. Now, the roster wise, at least there's enough of these young guys out there that Thibodeau doesn't have too much choices, right? He's going to have to play some of these guys at least, minutes, and that's good. But when you start looking at, I'm trying to think, even like Hartenstein, how old is he? He is, they don't have his age here. Anyway, he's got to be 27, 28, right? He's older than those guys. But yeah, as it is now, it almost maybe that's what the front office did. They kind of stacked the roster with the younger guys to force Tibbs to have to play them. And so, that'll be good, but we'll see how the minutes are doled out in the beginning and then what the results are and how quick he might be to bench the guy. Sometimes you got to let him make mistakes, and that's how you get better in the long run. And so that's the other thing is, are they going to be benching these guys real quick? That causes issues. We'll find out in 15 games.
Yeah, Coach, I really appreciate your time and look forward to talking to you more about it. As the season kicks off and we see what this roster really looks like. If the Knicks do get Donovan as well, I appreciate your thoughts.
Oh, my pleasure. And by the way, Donovan Mitchell, it would make it more exciting. He would be the best the best backcourt player they've had in a while. So and then alongside Brunson. So it should be. There should be some energy and excitement in the gym as it is with those guys. But yes, I'm anxious to find out what's going to happen if they're going to make that deal. But I don't think it's going to happen before the season starts.
Yeah, I don't see it. I think Ainge is going to continue to drag it out. Yeah, he's trying to get more teams involved, but yeah, the Knicks have the best offer in terms of picks.
Right. Well, we shall see. Yeah. But thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yep, anytime, and I'll talk to you soon. Be well.
You too. I'm in.